So we see that platforms are very important for identifying where a candidate stands. And one of the reasons we always want to know where they stand is because even though in culture today, we look a lot at the personality of the individual. And we say, I really like this person, I like their attitude, I like their behavior. But personality is not what we really should be prioritizing our vote on. It really needs to be the principle. And where you find the principle is the platform. And a lot of times today, we look at a party and people say, well, that's my party, I'm voting for them. Well, sometimes that's okay, but we want to know what is the principle of the person involved, and that's where sometimes the platform really does help show the principles, at least of the party. But we've come to a place today where it seems that fewer and fewer people are caring about principle, and we care a lot more about personality, which is kind of a bad place to be.
Yeah, it is a bad place to be, and I would say it's a safe thing, I think, to say that most of the people in the two major parties, most of those voters have never read their own platforms for their party. They're voting on the personality of who's running, or on 30-second ads, or on sound bites, or something else. And they're not seeing that when that person gets into office, they're going to enact literally thousands of policies. And you want to be principle-driven. One of the early pieces of great political wisdom was given by President George Washington. President Washington had given so much to see America become this strong nation. After having spent 45 years in public service and finishing his last 8 years as President of the United States, as he's leaving the presidency, he gives his famous farewell address. In that farewell address, he sums up for Americans what really we pretty much already knew, but he's just reminding us. And he said, one of the greatest banes or enemies of free government is a love of party. He didn't say parties were bad. He said, if you love your party more than you love your principle, that will destroy a free government. And so he talked about how important it is to love the right principles and not have a love for party. And so as Christians, when we get involved, it's okay to be involved in parties, but I'm involved in a party because I have certain principles I want to see move forward. And I'm involved in that party to move those principles forward. And if I can't get them moved forward, I'm going to find a place where I can move those principles forward, because principles are more important than personalities. And that really is the core of Proverbs 14:34, which tells us to be careful about our public policies.
Yeah, one of the great examples, I think, from American history is Benjamin Rush. Benjamin Rush signed the Declaration, he helped ratify the Constitution, and then he served under the first 3 presidents, all of whom were from a different political party. And there was a time in his life somebody came to him and said, okay, Benjamin, help me out. You are working with all these different guys. And Benjamin Rush says, I've been called an aristocrat. I've been called a Democrat. People are trying to figure out what party I'm from. He says, I'm not any of that. I'm a Christocrat, meaning the only thing I care about are Christian principles, and I want to move those forward regardless of the party. And this is where in culture today, it's so easy to look and say, this party's good, that party's bad. For whatever reason, we need to say, wait a second, what we care the most about are the principles. We want to promote godly principles. We want to promote biblical principles. We know that righteousness is what exalts a nation. So we want to, as Christians, to promote godly and righteous principles. Part of how we want to do that is try to elect a godly and a righteous president and a leader. And part of how that happens is we have to get involved early through the process, through the primary process. We help get that candidate through the primary process, and then we stay engaged the whole time, making sure that we are voting not just for personality, but for principles of righteousness.
The civil arena can be an intimidating place, but the more informed you are, the more empowered you will be to get involved. Voting is not just a right, it's a responsibility. As Christians, we are called to steward the nation God has placed us in, but stewardship starts long before you head to the polls. First, remember this: choose principles over party. Look at what the Bible says about education, life, economics, marriage, family, immigration, religious liberty, and then choose the party and the candidates that best mirror those values. Principles over party. Second, it's important to support the good, quality candidates running for public office. Although the candidate who stands for godly values may often be bullied, belittled, attacked, or ignored by the media, this is not an insurmountable problem. A candidate can overcome the media with a strong grassroots team lifting him up. So when you find a good candidate, get involved. Offer whatever financial support you can. Volunteer some of your time, even if it's only an hour or two. Voice and show your support for those candidates in the community. Vote at all primaries and main elections. Call or write his or her office to let them know that you support what they're doing. Unfortunately, too few Christians communicate directly with those elected to represent them. Politicians are constantly making decisions that will affect your city, state, and country, and a well-written letter or email can have more impact than you can imagine. Third, once you have become active as an individual, it may be time to lead community change. Yes, you. Gather others who believe as you do and start a local group in your community. Effective change most often comes through well-organized and well-led groups that represent a body of the electorate. Finally, pray. Become active in praying for leaders and officials at all levels, as instructed in 1 Timothy 2, verses 1 through 4. Pray for elected officials, issues, court cases, and potential candidates. There is power in prayer. As a founding father, John Hancock wisely challenged Christian citizens in his day. I urge you, by all that is dear, by all that is honorable, by all that is sacred, not only that ye pray, but that ye act. Do all 4 of these action steps and you can shape the future of your city, state, and nation. It's time to put your influence to work through election season and beyond.
A big election is approaching and some major decisions are about to be made. Voting is one of our most important rights and responsibilities as U.S. citizens. And this next election will ultimately determine who makes the calls on all the issues that you and I care the most about. In this upcoming election, your voice and your vote counts.
The president who takes office will have the opportunity to make some major decisions this term that will impact generations to come. The 1/3 of the Senate we vote into office this election will determine just how far that next president can go in making those decisions. And all of the House of Representatives seats will be up for grabs. So this is the year to show up and vote your values.
We have a chance to shape history, one vote at a time.